portion of the following program contains sports betting analysis. Fight IQ provides analysis and personal insights for entertainment purposes only. There are no guarantees inside the octagon. Please gamble responsibly. All wagers involve risk. Viewers are encouraged to bet within their means. Fight IQ and the ETB network are not responsible for any financial losses. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
They call it the puncher's chance for a reason. Because in the cage, logic can be shattered in a split second. But where the world sees luck, we see an opening. We're stripping away the emotion and looking at the math of the matchup. Every dog has its day, and every favorite has a price. It's time to separate the noise from the payday. Lock in. This is Fight IQ, the puncher's chance. Your guide to this weekend's best bets in MMA. And now, here's your host, Tom Albano.
All right, people, here we are on a Friday night, and you know what that means. The UFC has gone international. And not only has the UFC gone international, but we've also got PFL action tomorrow as well, as they continue the summer series, the summer of PFL, whatever you would like to call it. So we are here Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of Fight IQ, the puncher's chance. Hi again, everybody. My name is Tom Albano, and I want to welcome you to the show. If I look tired, it is because the last 24 plus hours here at the ETB network have been very ridiculous, I guess would be the word for it. Between something, I'm not even kidding when I say this. The last 24 hours here at the ETB network, all three shows that were scheduled for today, Unnecessary Wagers, Gridiron Gurus, which wrapped up about an hour or so ago, and now this, all had their scripts flipped upside down between either last night or today, with everything that has transpired within the sports world, from Romo getting arrested, Tony Romo, the former NFL quarterback, Patrick Mahomes getting cleared for full practice in training camp with the Chiefs. Oh, yeah, and then a certain somebody in basketball made their decision, dropping it on a Friday morning, in a Friday news dump. So everything in the ETB world has been shaken today. And then there's going to be something that we talk about, because if you have slept under a rock the last day or so, or you haven't been following the PFL too much, or you've quite simply just didn't notice a difference in thumbnail between yesterday morning and the time that this show is now taking place, the PFL has had a significant change in its main event for tomorrow. But we will cover all of that, and we will cover, of course, the UFC Abu Dhabi card, coming up with all the different best bets and all that good stuff. But, of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. And that's everything from is this the thing? I can't do it right now because of the all right. I thought it would go over. And I thought it would go over the banner, but I guess it didn't. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. That would be every episode of Fight IQ, every episode of Fight IQ, the puncher's chance, every episode of Gridiron Gurus and Unnecessary Wagers. Shout out to Gridiron Gurus. I know they covered a lot today. And, Also, every breaking news stream, because Nick Morganson, Dave Waitman went on earlier today is the breaking news when LeBron's news dropped, him signing with the Sixers. So make sure you get notified of everything here. So ring that bell, turn that bell, and turn the notification. Ring the bell and ring the bell and turn the notifications on. You see, I'm scumbling up over everything. I'm going to try to get through this show today in one piece. Twitter, or X as they now call it, hit like, hit repost, hit quote post, and then come to the YouTube side of things and help us grow on that platform, youtube.com/ETB Network. We're over 11. We just hit 1,140 subscribers. And we might be a little bit over that now. And then, of course, we just hit 2,700 watch hours. Help us continue to grow with the watch hours so that way help us to grow the foundation here on YouTube. And then, of course, follow us across the different social media platforms at FightIQ ETB, at ETB Network. And then you can follow me on social media at Thomas J. Albano. Now, normally this is the portion of the program where I do usually the disclaimer, but shout out to Callum McClurg, who was able to do the disclaimer, and then made a little altered intro for myself, which is why maybe the intro was a little longer than planned or expected this week. All right, but let's stop wasting time. Let's get to the things. Before we get to the best bets, let's talk about the news itself. Reported on Thursday night, originally by MMA Junkie, and then about 30 to 60 minutes, maybe no more than 90 minutes later, the PFL released a the PFL put out a press release to everyone within the MMA media circle. Shamil Musayev, the former PFL champion of a regular season, he and Thad Jean were supposed to go at it to determine the PFL Welterweight champion. Shamil Musayev is out. He was having weight cutting complications on Thursday. He was not going to be able to make it to the scales with the weight cutting difficulties he was experiencing. He was not doing well, not feeling well, and was not going to be able to make the weight. So Shamil Musayev is out. Ernesto Starboy Rodriguez, who was scheduled to compete on the preliminary card, and he was scheduled to take on Aaron McKenzie. Well, that fight is Ernesto Rodriguez versus Aaron McKenzie is now out, and 48 hours notice, Ernesto Starboy Rodriguez goes from prelim to main event championship matchup. I hear of something like that. I think of Joe Soto, who was scheduled to compete in a different bantamweight matchup in the UFC about 12 or so years ago, and ended up getting a call up to fight TJ Dillashaw on 1 day notice because Renan Barao had his own weight cutting difficulty and passed out in the bathtub, hit his head, was forced to withdraw from that main event. That's what that reminds me of. And unfortunately for PFL Washington, D.C., this is a card that just everything kind of fell apart. This is when I would make the joke on my social media where I would play where I would post a link to the song by Zebrahead, Falling Apart. Shout out to Zebrahead, all my fellow SVR 2005 fans. There goes everything's falling apart because, this card fell apart. Ernesto Rodriguez was supposed to take on Magomed Umaladov. That fight ended up falling through. Umaladov got hurt. And so McKenzie stepped in. But then, of course, this situation happened. So this is not just Ernesto Rodriguez stepping up on late notice, 48 hours notice. This is Ernesto Rodriguez taking a third different scheduled opponent for this card. Also, and shout out to Tapology because I have everything listed here. Bryce Meredith versus Jack Cartwright was supposed to take place on this card. Cartwright ended up withdrawing. We were supposed to have a heavyweight matchup between Valentin Moldavsky and Bruno Capoloza, and Capoloza couldn't compete anymore because he has visa issues. Mando Gutierrez was supposed to take on Nikosi Nidabele, but Gutierrez withdrew. There was supposed to be a fight between the former PFL light heavyweight champion Antonio Carlos Jr. and Luke Traynor, Carlos Jr. Pardon me, no, he didn't withdraw. That fight just fizzled out. My point being, though, they had a lot of different stuff planned for this card, and it just kind of fell apart. And I'll talk about it when I show this, but Nikosi Ndebele is still on the card, but he's taking on 14-11 Brandon Davis. Bryce Meredith is still on the card, taking on Michael Sturr. You still got Sullivan Coley on the card against Rasul Magomedov, which is an interesting matchup. You still got now the planned co-main event is Tyson Pedro taking on Rafael Xavier. So this is a card that like 3 fights fell out, and one of them, 3 fights fell out during this week. One of them being the main event. This is a bit of a disappointment for PFL DC. And more importantly, just when you talk about the summer of PFL, this is definitely a bit of a disappointment. This is definitely a bit of a disappointment. And in terms of just how this summer of PFL has shaped up, I mean, it's definitely not going as expected. Because last week, which was supposed to start everything, PFL Austin, you're supposed to have the rematch between the rematch between Costello Vastinas and Johnny Eblin. Unfortunately, Vastinas ended up getting hurt a few weeks ago, and fortunately, Impa Kasaganai was able to step in, and that was still a rematch, but fight wasn't as good as their first, and Eblin ended up getting the finish, which definitely not bad. It was a strong finish too. It was really good, and the card itself was entertaining. But obviously, now we're salivating more for a rematch between Vastinas and Eblin. And again, just because the PFL used to be what the PFL used to be, and now what it is under John Martin, you think back to that Eblin was 10 seconds away or so from retaining the championship. He got caught in a choke and ended up passing out 10 seconds before the final bell. So you wonder why we didn't just get an immediate rematch. And especially because Eblin's track record prior to that, when he was Bellator champion, was something else. Johnny Eblin has had this energy to him where he is one of the best, if not the best middleweight that's not signed to the UFC. So a little disappointment here. This card ended up falling apart. And you got to hope that, the PFL has 3 more cards planned for its summer of PFL. You've got PFL Long Island, which I have a very heavy interest in, considering I'm going to be there for that card, or as they call PFL New York, I should say, where you've got Usman Nurmagomedov taking on Archie Colgan. Solid matchup, lightweight championship on the line, and it might be Usman Nurmagomedov's last fight in PFL. They've been trying to get him signed. Actually, let me double check and make sure, that situation is still a thing. It's set to he did not sign an extension. It is set to expire after his title defense against Archie Colgan. So there is a whole, conversation, whole dialogue that, especially if Nurmagomedov retains the championship, he's going to go over to the UFC because, of course, he's the cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov. And the UFC is going to want to have a taste of that Usman Nurmagomedov fight because Usman Nurmagomedov is one of, if not the best lightweight that's not signed to the UFC. So there's that. And then you got PFL Charlotte, which some people might say, well, it's the one that doesn't have a title fight, so it's not a solid main event. It's not a great card, but this card, pretty underrated. Brian Battle versus Dalton Rasta. Disappointing it's not for a championship, but that's an amazing main event. And then the co-main event, I think I'm even more excited for. Josh Silveira against Darren Jeffrey. I'm salivating at that. And then, by the way, if you loved your middleweight fights, you got 1, you got 2, and you got 3 at PFL Charlotte with Josh Fremd. Another solid name taking on Johnny Gregory. And J.J. Wilson is also on that main card. The Moldavsky-Kapoloza fight, that ended up getting moved to the Charlotte card. Denis Goltsov is on the Charlotte card. This is a case of Wait, Lewis McGrillen's already on that card? Damn. Okay, this is something I didn't notice. Did the fight fall out or something? That Lewis McGrillen, who just fought in the co-main event of Austin last week, is now competing on the Charlotte card? Oh my God. So after getting upset by Rafael Nascimento, Lewis McGrillen is taking a short notice fight to compete in Charlotte. All right, so people, I think you got to pay attention to that Charlotte card. And then PFL Tampa, of course, the retirement fight of Chris Cyborg. One more title fight taking on Ketlin Vieira, who's coming over from the UFC. That's a very interesting matchup. And you got Jacob Kasuba, the former PFL Europe champion, who is always entertaining, in my opinion, to watch. Luke Traynor has actually been moved to that card. He's taking on Roland Dunlop. Gino Vancinas, the younger brother, Costello Vancinas, is competing on this card too. Taylor Santos competing. So we've got some pretty exciting cards. The concern is going to be, this is now 2 straight PFL events where the originally scheduled main event does not go through. You gotta pray that you go 3 for 3. Not just that these cards are entertaining, like last week's in Austin was, but you gotta pray that you go 3 for 3 with 3 scheduled main events that hold up and are well. Especially because the PFL is really going all out, and of course, which I'll talk about not next week, but Monday on Fight IQ, AJ McKee is going to be competing in September in a belt for belt matchup where the PFL title is going to be on the line, and the Ryzen title is going to be on the line. So that's going to be amazing. And the PFL really trying to establish itself as more than just a default number 2 promotion. They want to establish themselves as the number 2, as I would say, an alternative product away from the usual that is the UFC. Now, last week going head to head with UFC Oklahoma City, maybe not the smartest ordeal. Now, this week they actually don't have competition because the UFC is in Abu Dhabi, so the PFL will have Saturday night all to itself. Solid. And I've heard the cries about, the PFL and, why are you competing against the UFC? I might go into it more on Monday, especially because it seems like everybody here at the ETV Network is talking about the ESPN layoffs. From my understanding, from sources I cannot name, basically them moving over to Saturday night was part of the whole deal for their last year, because now PFL is the only MMA game on ESPN. In other words, the UFC made the announcement last summer that they were going to be moving over to Paramount starting this year, and it was around, I'd say, fall time, if I remember right, where I got told basically prepare for the PFL to be doing a lot of Saturday cards in 2026 because, now we're the only MMA show on ESPN. Now, I don't remember a timeline or not if this was also around the time that the WWE came in for ESPN. I want to say it was. But, and I know I remember Ariel Helwani when the news of the UFC going over to Paramount first took hold. I remember him asking, is ESPN going to want to do anything with the PFL? Or, are they going to put everything behind it to be, the MMA product that they want, or because they don't have the big game in town anymore, the UFC, they don't want MMA on their network. And I don't know, man, I'm getting the feeling this part is just me and my own observations as both a fan and as somebody who has been in the media. Is actually, I believe tomorrow is going to mark 10 years in MMA media for me, which is awesome. Look, from my perspective on things, I don't know if ESPN is truly behind the PFL, which is a shame because the PFL has, everyone has talked about it. The product that has been put out there in 2026, not that the product has been bad in the previous years, but there is still a significant notice in improvement in quality. That these guys legitimately are the number 2 promotion in the world. And if you're looking for some MMA out there that is not the UFC, there is the PFL. And then, of course, there are the other promotions across the globe, too. Mention Ryzen, Octagon MMA. There are promotions out there for you to take in. So if you want alternative products, if you want competition, that's not something that's not the UFC. You got to root for guys like PFL, man. And of course the PFL is going to want to put a great product out there. 1, for its fans. 2, to be a solid MMA promotion. Number 3, if this deal with ESPN is going away at the end of this year, they're going to want to appeal to some of their suitors, whether it be Netflix or whether it be Fox, because an awful announcing article about a month and a half ago did put out a report about that those were the 2 potential destinations for PFL next. So, you got to root for these guys. I'm rooting for these guys. I'm going to be excited to be there next week for DC, but right now, to be there on the LI. But right now we got DC this weekend, and I'm going to go to the Washington D.C. best bets first. I know in a case like this, normally I would go with the UFC ones because there's a lot to deal there, and if you look at the bets, obviously there's not much content available with these, but for the sake of trying to keep everything together in a nice flow, we will go to that. And because I want to point something out, something about the main event. Now, before I was watching Sean Cian's show on Sherdog, and he pointed something out. When Thad Gene was scheduled to take on Shamil Musayev for the vacant championship, he had started as a favorite at minus 115 or so, and then became a slight underdog at plus 120-ish at the time of Sean's show. Well, considering the late notice news as to what happened, you can see what's happened over here. And if you can't, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. That, my friends, says that Gene is a minus 810 favorite. Minus 810. It is something else, man. That's just simply the matter of that Ernesto Rodriguez has only fought in the PFL one time prior to this. He is 11-1. He is a solid prospect in the welterweight division, but his only PFL fight was when he debuted in March against Masayuki Kukuri. And he ended up winning a fight. It was only a majority decision. Now, he is the former Tough Enough champion. He's competed in Tough Enough. He's competed in Uriah Faber's promotion, the A1 Combat. He's fought in the LFA. His only loss came in Titan FC against Richie Lewis about 5 years ago. He's a solid guy. 28, only 28 years old, still developing as a fighter, just about to enter his prime. But the level of competition, And especially when you consider what that Gene has done since his own PFL debut, it's not even a comparison. That Gene earned this title opportunity because last year he ran through Magomed Ankalaev. He ended up getting the split decision over Jason Jackson. Solid matchup. And then wipes the floor with Logan Storley, a former Bellator champion. Along with Jason Jackson, a former Bellator champion. And then he, even before that, in 2023 and 2024, he was built up as one to watch in PFL. The decision win over Eric Algonquin, the first round finish of Ali Omar, Romain Debine, the win over Chris Brown in 2024. He's 11-0, and he has proven himself. He's one of the more exciting fighters in the PFL. He's one of the fighters that you can argue to be the face of the PFL right now. That Gene is an amazing fighter to watch. And Ernesto Rodriguez is talented, Xtreme Couture product. I don't think he's got it in him to pull off something unbelievable, like what we could see as a big upset, like TJ Dillashaw upsetting Brendan Barrow. I just don't see it. But obviously, because of late notice nature of this matchup, betting odds are not great. The best that's available. Let's see if there are more available. Fight to go to distance. No is a -600. And even fight to start round. See, it only says start round 4 and 5. That Gene -280 for his KO TKO. Decisions +475. I think Thad Gene's going to get a finish, considering not because Ernesto's bad. For Ernesto to win, I'll say this: for Ernesto to win this match, he's got to get the decision. He's got to be able to use his wrestling, because wrestling is a solid base for him, and he's got to be able to pin Thad Gene to the cage, try to score a couple of takedowns. I just don't see that happening. Thad Gene is just a solid all-rounder. So the best bet play here is going to be the under 2.5 rounds at -175. I don't know if I'm willing to make that my PFL lock just yet, because then there is the co-main event to talk about. Rafael Xavier taking on Tyson Pedro. So here's an interesting scenario here, because Rafael Xavier is the favorite in this matchup, and he's actually ranked number 10 on Tapology. Am I reading that right? Number 10 light heavyweight in North America. Rafael Xavier at 14-9. Something just doesn't sit right with me about that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because light heavyweight's a division that, could use a lot of improvement across the MMA world, out of all the different MMA divisions. That just might be my perspective of it, my explanation for it. Rafael Xavier. Anyways, where was I? Coming into this fight off a loss to Rasul Magomedov a few months ago in Sioux Falls. His last win came in June of last year, the fight before the fight with Magomedov, where he took on Carl Albrechtsen and ended up getting a first-round finish. He's lost to Simeon Powell. Before his time in the PFL, he spent time in Octagon, beat Dan Vini, beat Mateusz Sterlecki. Okay, and this might explain the 14-9 record. He started his career 6-6. So he's definitely made improvements since then. But the thing is, Tyson Pedro has fought in the UFC. He made his PFL debut in April, unsuccessful performance against Delvlet, the former champion. I feel like this could be a solid rebound performance from Pedro. Pedro's 10-6. He's fought in the UFC. He'll fought against, Vitor Petrino, Modestus Bukauskas, Mauricio Shogun Rua, Alves St. Preux. He actually had a 4-year layoff, or pardon me, 3.5-year layoff from MMA between 2018 and the early portion of 2022. And since coming back, he went 3-2 at the UFC. He had the loss to Doubleheader, like I said, his PFL debut in April, and he actually had a boxing match against Timur Khan, which he ended up winning by 7th-round knockout. I'm probably actually going to lean on Pedro for this one as an underdog simply because of the experience. And the plus 120, I think if there's an underdog play, it's a light heavyweight fight involving a former UFC fighter and somebody who's considered one of the better light heavyweight prospects, or light heavyweights outside of the UFC. So I'll go with Pedro on this one. I do like the over 1.5 at minus 188 as well. And then if we throw one more in there, I do like the minus 188 on the Davis-Debly fight, only because, again, the short notice nature of everything. The Debly's just a better fighter. So those are going to be my 4 plays. And then going back to here, the Thad Gene, the under 2.5 rounds. I'll get back to the media assets. Yeah, there we are. All right. So the Thad Gene, Ernesto Rodriguez fight to go under 2.5 rounds. Yeah. Lock of the week for PFL. That's what it's going to be. You know, PFL usually doesn't have the greatest of odds when it comes to what you see with DraftKings. You know, more options are usually available with the UFC card, which, give me 1 second and I can pull that up now. There we go. No, hold on. Here we go. I think we got it. Yeah, we got it. All right. So let's talk about my best bets for this weekend's card in the morning on UFC and UFC Abu Dhabi. And my best bets actually do not involve the main event or the co-main event. And actually, my article just went up a little while ago on Deadspin. So I'm going to leave that in the comments for you guys to check out. So you can check that out there. All right. But I'm going to go over my best bets for UFC Abu Dhabi. And my first fight, not my best bet. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. Text came in. I got to answer. All right. My first best bet is going to be Islam Dulatov taking on Wellington Turman. And honestly, of the 3 best bets I put on the Deadspin article, it's the only one on the main card that I'm really confident in. And that's because Islam Dulatov is a solid all-around guy that the UFC is trying to get behind. He's fairly big for the welterweight division. He's 6'3". He's got a solid 75-inch reach. He is a great striker. He brings a lot of pressure. He's got a lot of volume in terms of the number of strikes that he throws. The strikes that he throws are high quality, and he's a dual threat. He's a solid finisher. He can finish you on the feet. He can finish you on the ground. He looked great in his performance on Dana White's Contender Series, and then he looked great in his UFC debut last year against Adam Fugan, which that was a first-round finish. Wellington Turman's a solid veteran, but it's also going to be his first fight in about 2.5 years. Solid jiu-jitsu, so, you know, it's one of those things where you hate saying it, but it kind of is. Actually, no. You can't call this a striker versus grappler matchup. Now, you see the odds continue to update, actually. Yeah, live in real time, people. Oh, my God, the lines are moving. What is going on here? This is the Magomed Ankalaev versus Damian Rzebski fight. We're not focused on that. We're only focused on Islam Dulatov. And I'm not going to make the money line play. No, thank you. Minus 1,050. That's not what this is about. What this is about, God, it keeps flashing. I don't think we've ever had a best bet show where we're actually seeing updates in real time with this. Did the line just move again, or is it just me? I'll have to look out for that next flash. Where was I? So Wellington Turman, not that he's a one-trick pony. Okay, it just flashed again. Yeah, the odds was minus 290. Now it's back to minus 285. Oh, and it flashed it, and now it's back to 290. Oh my God, this matchup is broken. Where was I? I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. Wellington Turman's not a one-trick pony. He's got decent hands, but his game is within his jiu-jitsu. So he's going to want to bring this fight to the ground. The problem for him is that Islam is the kind of person who can trouble him on the ground. He is somebody who can submit somebody who is great with jiu-jitsu, and I believe Turman has been submitted before in his career anyway. Dulatov is just going to bring the pressure right away. I'm not going to necessarily say he has to keep this fight standing, but he probably doesn't need to bring this fight to the ground. If this stays on the feet, this is Dulatov's fight to lose. And my best bet for this fight is a Dulatov win, but it's not going to be on the money line. In fact, we're going to go into the fight lines, I believe. No, it's not going to be on the fight lines. It's going to be in the fight parlays. Okay, here's something interesting. So when I wrote the Deadspin piece, Islam Dulatov to win by KO, TKO, DQ in round 1 was a minus 110. That line has jumped up 50 points. That's really interesting. So then the question is going to be if Islam Dulatov will win in round 1 or in round 2. If you want to go with a round 1 victory, I think that's still a solid play in terms of, staying with guaranteed, what I think is guaranteed money. The question for you people is going to be, do you think this fight ends in under 2 minutes and 30 seconds? Because Islam Dulatov to win and under half a round is plus 185. I think that's a little disrespectful for Wellington to Wellington Turman. I don't think he's only going to last 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I think it's going to be a late first round finish like the fight with Adam Fugit was. I think at that point you go with the under 1.5, but that's minus 275. That's not as good a value. So I think Islam Dulatov to win. I put the piece out, the Deadspin piece out. At this point, it's official. You're going to go one of two ways with this. It's either going to be Islam Dulatov to win by KO, TKO, DQ in round 1, minus 160, or if you want the more simple play, you're willing to give a little, Islam Dulatov to win by KO, TKO in any round is minus 200. So there's one performance there. But the other ones, it's going to be Walter Walker taking on Thomas Peterson. Why is this fight on the prelims? Like, Thomas Peterson's a guy they got from Contender Series. He's been very up and down, but he's still a notable name in the lower portion of the heavyweights. And then Walter Walker, my God, people. Walter Walker is on a streak like nobody has ever been on in the UFC. Is he up to 3 or 4 heel hook submissions at this point? I need to double check. But he is on such a streak right now that, I've long considered him one of the more entertaining portions, one of the more entertaining things about the heavyweight division. A heavyweight division, which, by the way, it's 4 heel hooks, and then he got a rear naked choke in Karate Combat this past February. So 4 straight submission victories, all within the first round. 3 of them coming in the first 90 seconds of the fight, and then the Karate Combat submission victory. This guy, we talk about how the heavyweight division is boring or how it stinks or how it lacks talent. And, talk about the rise of Josh Hokett, even though there's, Hokett has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Talking about what you need to succeed at the heavyweight division. Talk about Alex Pereira losing his heavyweight debut. Walter Walker is a ray of sunshine in a cloudy, rainy, thunderstormy heavyweight division, in my opinion. I know he didn't look great in his UFC debut against Lukas Brzezinski, but I'm focused on the here and now. And the here and now is so far, Junior Tafa, Dante Almeida, Kennedy Zeku, and Louis Sutherland. He just ran through them all. Now he's taking on Thomas Peterson, who, like I said, not bad. I would say, with the exception of Kennedy, it's the toughest fight so far for him. Him meaning Walter Walker, but 3-3 in the UFC. He got the win over Guillaume Pat, the majority decision win in April. A lot of people thought it was a draw. He got 10-8. It was not the greatest of fights. Not the greatest of performances in that fight. Vitor Petrino lost. Jamil Gaziev lost. He's been finished before. He has not been submitted, though, is the interesting thing, Thomas Peterson. So will Walter Walker become the first to do so? You know what I think? I think so. Now, what am I locking is the question. The way that Walker has been, this is a momentum play, and Peterson, it's not that I don't think he has any talent. It's just, I don't know, man. If he's unranked at this point, I don't know how he's going to do against somebody like Walter Walker, who should be rising up a little quicker in the heavyweight division, especially for how things are. Excuse me, plus 165, and decision win is plus 450. Let's see. Walter Walker to win by submission in round 1 is plus 350. Round 2, plus 600. Peterson is a little tougher of a cookie that I don't know which round. Walter Walker to win in under 1.5 rounds is also plus 165. What? Seriously? Rob the sports books. Go rob the sports books, please. You need to do something. Rob the sports books. That's insane. You could either have him by just submission, or take this play, which is less likely to have its odds move by tomorrow morning, and that's insane. Or is it Walter Walker by submission plus 165? Like that's ridiculous, man. That is ridiculous. I really have no idea what to say at this point, because how in the world are you not just like, you gotta hold on. Where is it? Where's the other football forecast sound? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Please go put a bet on that now. Walter Walker by submission is my lock of the week for UFC Abu Dhabi. All right, now we go over to actually just a fight under on the prelims. Dustin Jacoby taking on Mohamed Said. Two solid names. Mohamed Said 9-0. The only thing that makes me question him and what we see with this matchup here is the level of competition that he's faced. Because you go into his UFC, this is his UFC debut. He competed in UA Warriors and MMA series, but just, listen to these records. 20-11. All right. 11-4. 13-10-1. Ugh. And then for his first 6 fights. 1-0, 4-0, 2-2, 1-0, 1-0, 0-0. And his debut matchup actually has the Tapology flag. Let's have a look. Bout has been flagged by Tapology for potential issues with legitimacy. So, I don't know what I would want to call this. I don't know if I would, because I don't know if I would want to call it a fraud alert, but still. Yeah, I have a problem with that. You know, especially against somebody like Dustin Jacoby, who is Dustin Jacoby going to beat the top names of the light heavyweight division in the UFC? No, but he's got some solid power in his hands. You know, he was a damn Glory Kickboxing title challenger. He was an entertaining fighter in Glory Kickboxing. He's an entertaining fighter now. He's got a couple of solid wins under his belt in the last couple of years in the UFC. Even then, his losses, when you talk about his losses, let me pull up Dustin Jacoby. Anyway, strength of schedule 28. Dom Reyes, give or take, because Reyes had the surge, but it's still not, 2019 Dom Reyes. Lonzo Menafield, respectable veteran. Azamat Mirzakhanov, that's not a bad loss. Khalil Roundtree Jr., that's not a bad loss. So that's my point in that. Look at that. 3 straight finishes. Vitor Petrino, Bruno Lopez, Julius Walker. I'm leaning into just Dustin Jacoby in this one. But I know a lot of people a little concerned about that. And, Mohamed Saeed's got that kind of power where he can clip Jacoby with something and Jacoby can get rocked. Here's what I'm going to do. If you're feeling confident in Dustin Jacoby, -185, but honestly, the KO, TKO, DQ at -140, that's more of a solid value play than just going with that. So I'm going to go with that as well. Briefly, we'll touch on the co-main event and main event. Steve Erceg, solid former title challenger, I should say. And he's taken on Temirov. With the way I'm tired right now, I'm not. Oh, Ramazan Temirov. Wait. Oh, okay. Oh, they used the fuller name on DraftKings. Ramazanabek. Tapology, they just call him Ramazan Terimov, who's got a solid strength. He's got some solid wins of late. Charles Johnson, CJ Vergara. Those are his 2 first fights in the UFC. Not bad. Going up against Steve Erceg is going to be a really tough ask. He's got the draw and grappling against Azat Maxim. Competed around in Mesa and Ryzen and WLF. This is tough because Temirov can catch Erceg with something. I know there's questions about what Erceg has in him, but he's got this the decision wins over Ode Osborne, Tim Elliott. Just for the sake of competition level, I'm going to go with, I lean to Erceg. So you could do Erceg on the money line. Going specific, though, Erceg by decision plus 150, I'd probably lean to that because of value. Decision at -150, if you're just looking for a conservative, safer play, maybe go with that. And then in the main event, Magomed Ankalaev versus Bogdan Guskov. Ankalaev's got to be able to, like I said on Monday, Guskov's got to find the power, and Ankalaev's got to be able to keep his distance, jab, punch from distance, and then get inside and use his clinch to hold him against the fence. Work Bogdan over in the clinch. Take Guskov down and score maybe a finish there. I would probably... the odds aren't great on this. The under is at the under is 2.5 rounds, -145. Let's see what the Tapology community is predicting for this main event. A lot of people going with Ankalaev. Quite a number of them are going via a finish. Let's see. Finish is minus 330. What about the spread? The spread, that's my... You know what? I'm going to go with Guskov. I'm going to go with the plus 13.5 spread in the Ankalaev-Guskov fight. That means if that fight goes... Oh, no, wait. Does the fight need to be... Let me see. Okay, if a fight... Yeah, let me go over this again, because some people actually might be confused by what I'm doing by picking the spread. I'm going to read it out. If a fighter wins via KO, submission, or DQ, then bets placed on that fighter will be settled as 1. If a fight requires a scorecard decision, the point spread will be applied to the fighter's combined total points. For example, in a 3-round fight, that requires a judge's scorecard decision. If all 3 judges scored a 29-28 for fighter X, and the point spread is fighter X minus 3.5, then bets on fighter X minus 3.5. Yeah, because that would only be 3 points. That would only be 3 points. Okay. I don't see Guskov getting 50-45. I really don't. I could see a couple of 49-46s. So I'm actually going to go with Guskov plus 13.5. And then if the fight ends in a finish, that actually is a bet victory. So I'm going to go with Guskov plus 185. I will say, in terms of ranking and confidence, though, these two are the lowest in terms of confidence. I would say Erceg, Temirov, lowest in confidence. Ankalaev, Guskov, second lowest. Middle bet, the one where I'm in the middle would probably be the Dustin Jacoby fight. Islam Dulatov bet will be second most confident, and then the most confident play, Walter Walker. All right, so going from most confident to least, Walter Walker by submission. Actually, I can take this off right now. Going from most confident to least, Walter Walker by submission, number 1. Number 2, Islam Dulatov to win via KO TKO in round 1. Number 3, Dustin Jacoby versus Muhammad Saeed, fight to end via KO TKO. Number 4 would be the plus 13.5 spread in the Ankalaev-Guskov fight. And then number 5 would be Erceg. I said Erceg via decision, right? Yes, Erceg via decision. So those are my best bets. And that is going to do it for this edition of Fight IQ, The Puncher's Chance. Just something to note, by the way, next week, obviously the PFL New York card is going to be on Friday, and I'll be there for it. So we won't be doing Puncher's Chance on Friday. We wouldn't, even if I wasn't attending, we wouldn't be doing it on Friday anyway, because Friday is the card. So to be announced, we're going to look at Thursday night at some point, or Thursday afternoonish. I don't know a specific time, plus Thursday is kind of a busier day at the network. MTGP, Banners Breakdowns, and hitting for the cycle. So stay tuned to Monday's Fight IQ and social media at Fight IQ ETB, so that way we can give you an official time on when Puncher's Chance is going to take place next week. All right. And then, like I said, Monday will be a normal show. And then you'll see Fight IQ Puncher's Chance, like I said, to be announced. We're going to assume Thursday at this point, but I can't give you a time just yet. But thank you all for tuning in to this edition. Fight IQ, The Puncher's Chance. That's solid. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. And then, of course, you guys on X, hit like, hit repost, hit quote post. speak up in the comments. Say what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, what you agree or disagree with me about. And then go over to the YouTube home, youtube.com/ETV Network, and hit the subscribe button there and follow us on there. Speaking of follow us across social media. See our social medias going across the bottom at Fight IQ ETV for the show, at ETV Network for the network. And then personally, you can follow me on social media at Thomas J. Albano. All right. Let me turn that off. There we go. All right. But that's going to do it for this edition of Fight IQ, the Puncher's Chance. I'm Tom Albano. Remember, bet responsibly. Get in there. Place your bets. Think smart. Use your Fight IQ. And I'll see you Monday for a new edition of Fight IQ. Until then, this is Tom Albano saying good night. Good night.